Hello everyone, welcome. Yes, I'm finally making my Wonder Woman review and I need a haircut. Now, the process of making this video has been a long one and a hard one for me. I actually saw the movie last week, and after the first time I saw it, I left the theater spewing venom. I had a lot of really intense feelings about the movie after I saw it for the first time, and those feelings were mostly negative. Shocking, I know. It shocked me too. So I filmed a review last week after I saw the movie, and it was awful. It was long and rambling and not digestible at all, so I just ditched it. So I decided to wait a week before I filmed the new review to kind of wait to see if I could get myself there, let's say, in terms of accepting the movie for what it actually was instead of what I thought it was going to be before I saw it, with all the hype and all the accreditation of the movie being #1 in the world and a feminist breakthrough. Yesterday I decided to go back and see it again before I filmed this review with fresh eyes and an open mind, and I'm actually really glad I did. It may not align completely with my idea of feminism or a feminist movie, but I'm starting to love it for its triumphs, of which there are many, and in spite of its flaws. So to start the review, I'm going to start with the triumphs, the things that I loved about Wonder Woman. So I loved a lot about this movie, the first of which being the portrayal of the Amazons. They were brutal and smart and fucking hot, and I loved every part of their culture and place that they lived, Themyscira. But the thing I loved most about them was their portrayal of a traditionally masculine kind of physical strength. I also love the fact that their values and their traditions are something they instilled in Diana from a young age, and actually molded and shaped her and grew her into Wonder Woman, grew her into the woman that she would become and the woman that we know Wonder Woman to be. The scene where they rode in on the beach to fight the German soldiers on horseback, epic. Speaking of females in this movie being physically strong, the second thing I loved about this movie was the action scenes, which is actually really fucking rare for me for superhero movies. I usually dread watching action scenes in superhero movies. They're long, way too loud, meaninglessly violent, and full of dudes. But Wonder Woman in this regard was so different. The action didn't feel gratuitous until the end, and it was all centered around a woman being strongest physically among her peers. Females being physically strong is hugely important to me. I grew up playing sports, and I grew up eating enough to support me playing sports. I've always been pretty stocky, and through playing soccer, through rowing, doing collegiate martial arts, and now CrossFit, I know how strong physically that women can be. I know we can be stronger than men, and Diana and the Amazons are showing the world that we certainly are not the weaker sex. Another triumph of Wonder Woman was, yes, Gal Gadot's portrayal of Diana. I was really in awe of her ability to portray an innocence in a woman that wasn't necessarily infantilizing for her. Diana is smart, and oftentimes she's smarter than all the men in the room, but she's also optimistic to a fault and hopeful in a world that isn't. So a lot of articles that I read about Wonder Woman were chastising the film for the men's seemingly consistent comments about Diana's beauty. I actually agreed with those articles until I saw the movie for a second time and noticed how Diana carried herself in the face of the male gaze. She didn't dignify anybody with a fake smile or a thanks for the compliment. She seemed honestly very aloof to all of it. Growing up with the Amazons, the notion of beauty traditionally understood was probably lost on Diana anyway. She was still really hot. Which brings me to some of my criticisms of the movie. They came full force in my first viewing of the movie, but since seeing it for a second time, they've kind of lost a little bit of their bite. Even so, I found that my criticisms of the movie, I believe, personally, are still valid. So my first issue with the movie was that the Amazons didn't have any real canonical role in Diana's arc coming to a crescendo in the moments where Diana realized the value of saving mankind and decided to show Dr. Poison mercy. This kind of goes hand in hand with the shoehorned romance that I will talk about in a minute. But instead of Diana honing her strength, being accredited to the Amazons and remembering them and remembering the values that they had instilled in her of peace and compassion and forgiveness, it kind of was all about her remembering Steve. While this in and of itself I don't think is necessarily an issue, I think it would have been more moving to me personally if the Amazons, her family, had been involved in that resolution of her arc. Second, I thought that the plotline of Ares turning out to be real in the end was kind of a disappointing conclusion to Diana realizing the evils of mankind. I was pretty livid that Diana came to realize the inherent ambiguity of good and evil in mankind and the inherent evils that mankind have presented, only to immediately find out that she had been right all along and that Ares was real and the cause of the war. However, after my second viewing of Wonder Woman, I came to find out that the plot made more sense than I actually thought it did. The second time around, I paid a little bit less attention to how hot Gal Gadot was and a little bit more attention to what the Ares character was actually saying. In that he explained that he had whispered into their ears and given them ideas for evil, but hadn't influenced them or caused them to use that evil. I think I would have preferred if Ares turned out not to be real at all, but they needed an explosive last fight scene, didn't they? My final qualm with the movie was the shoehorned romance. And yes, I know that Steve Trevor has a long and important history of being Diana's love interest in the comics. I still have the feeling, and I still really believe, that the film would have done just as well and still held as true without the romance. I wanted to see Diana hone her abilities and come into her true self at the end of the movie due to her own power, wisdom, and wonder, but to me it appeared she only achieved that because of Steve's love and ultimately his death. Again, that in and of itself is not necessarily a criticism because love in all its forms is great, right? But I'm here to tell you that you can be powerful, you can be wise, and you can be wonderful without a man. Ultimately, I think I went into this movie with expectations so high that I forgot that this was a superhero movie and it was made to bust blocks and make money. Although there were a few things in this movie that I don't think were as feminist as they necessarily claim to be, I still want to give as much credit where credit is due. Wonder Woman was the first brick laid in a tower that will soon become the fortress of our female-led superhero movies, and it is an incredibly stable and awesome first step. So I want to extend a huge congratulations to Patty Jenkins, Gal Gadot, and the rest of the cast and crew of Wonder Woman for this huge accomplishment. I hope you liked this video. Tell me what you thought about Wonder Woman in the comment section, and I will see you guys next time. Hello everyone, welcome. Yes, I'm finally making my Wonder Woman review, and I need a haircut. Now, the process of making this video has been a long one and a hard one for me. I actually saw the movie last week, and after the first time I saw it, I left the theater spewing venom. I had a lot of really intense feelings about the movie after I saw it for the first time, and those feelings were mostly negative. Shocking, I know. It shocked me too. So I filmed a review last week after I saw the movie, and it was awful.